Hello everyone, my name is Daniela, and in today's lesson we are going to talk about why conversational English is inadequate to become a global professional. We are going to discuss specific topics like businesses, management, 6 competencies every good manager should have, and also we are going to talk about a specific case method. First of all, we are going to start talking about businesses, okay? A business is an enterprise that profitably anticipates, identifies, and satisfies the market needs. One of the most important people in every organization is the manager. Manager is pretty much the head of the organization, okay? Managers have to deal with many tasks. This is an ongoing process that requires different stages, okay? Managers have to be persuasive and they have to be able to support their arguments and ideas so they can convince other people about the merits of their ideas and plans. Okay, so we've already talked about businesses and managers, but now we are going to talk about management functions. The first function is the planning function, which is about the mission and vision of the company. This function is also subdivided into 3 types of planning. The first type of planning is strategic planning. This requires big resources, whether they're economical or material, because it's long-term vision, okay? And it can take up to 10 years. The next type of planning is tactical planning, okay? This is where bosses gather around to plan the future of the organization, and it can take from 2 to 3 years. And the last one is operational planning, which is doesn't require really many resources. It's pretty much short-term vision. It's something that can be done immediately. The second function of management is organizing, and it's about resources and task allocation. Managers use a line of command, which is the way pretty much who commands who and who does what. We said that managers are the head of the organization, but they can get everything done by themselves, which is why they require to allocate people to hand out tasks so someone else can help them with their job. The third function is the leading function. You might have noticed by now that this function is highlighted in red, and I'll tell you about it a little bit later because we are going to explain this function more profoundly later. The leading function is pretty much the most important one because it's about interacting and negotiating, okay? Managers have to convince people about the merits of their ideas. They have to support their arguments. They have to talk to many people. They have to talk to skeptical leaders, okay, which is important, that they must be persuasive. They must know what they're talking about so they can convince everyone else that what they're saying is good, you know, it will bring profit to the organization. And the last function, pretty much the evaluation stage. This is where managers check out the work, whether they realize that everything is working correctly, and this is also the function where the corrective measures are taken. If a manager notices that something is not working correctly, this is the moment where they can act on it and they can fix it so it works exactly the way it's supposed to work. Okay, so remember I said we were going to talk about the leading function a little bit more profoundly. Well, this is it. Previously, you might have noticed that the leading function was highlighted in red, and that's because this is the most important function of management. This function is all about communication and negotiation. Communication is a process in which individuals interact through symbols, okay? Symbols can be pretty much anything, body language, even emojis, clothes can be symbols. Well, individuals interact through symbols and they create and develop meanings. Meanings is pretty much the way someone sees their surroundings, okay? Well, communication is a very important process, okay? Humans, we have an innate desire to communicate. It's very important that we communicate, and managers really have to communicate to their group of people so they can do their work correctly. If a manager doesn't communicate, well, his work is pretty much doomed. Okay, but even more, there are 2 specific views to communication. The first view is the informational view. This view is simply about basic info sharing, okay? You just give out the information you want to give and that's it. But the other view, which is the constitutive view, is more important because in this type of view, just simple info sharing is not enough. Okay, just imagine you're the manager and you have to talk to your bosses about a new idea, introduce a new business model. Okay, a simple call or an email just won't suffice. It won't be enough. Okay, you have to have a meeting, you need to present numbers, you need to talk about the merits, the profit, etc. Okay, it's in this case, for example, the informational view of communication is not enough. Okay, there are some specific situations in which the constitutive view comes in handy. For example, like when you're introducing a new business model. Okay, you have to talk to your bosses a lot. Okay, it's a lot of negotiation and interacting with them. Secondly, when you have to persuade skeptical leaders, you have to be able to support your arguments, support your ideas. Okay, your bosses are not going to listen to you if you're just talking nonsense. Okay, you have to support your ideas with numbers, graphs. Okay, this is something that will give your idea some more weight. You know, something more valuable that makes it more real. Okay. Another occasion is like even when you navigate through the politics of the organization, even the constitutive view comes in handy for occasions like this. Remember that being a manager is no easy task. Managers have a lot of weight over their shoulders, okay? But throughout your career as a manager, you will be getting better, you will improve, okay? And there are some competencies that will most likely come to you once you start working as a manager and once you have time in your job, okay? These competencies will come easily to you. Competencies are pretty much a combination of skills, cognitive skills, knowledge, behaviors, values, okay? It's something that makes your work, that helps you make your work easier. Okay, there are 6 competencies that every manager should achieve, and we are going to talk about them here. Okay, the first competency is to acquire native-like English proficiency. Okay, perhaps when you start working as a manager, you don't like the way you sound. Maybe you don't sound like a native, and that's okay. You know, throughout your career, the more you talk, the more work you do, you will start sounding better. You will sound more fluent. Your pronunciation will be better. Okay, you just have to practice and you have to do your job correctly, and that way you'll see that you'll be talking like a native in no time. The second competency is to learn some basic concepts learned in business school. Perhaps if you're not a native English speaker, if you speak Spanish, okay, maybe you already know these concepts, like business concepts or accounting. You already know them, but in your basic language. Well, it's now time for you to learn them in English, okay? Technically, it should be easier for you to relearn them because, you know, you already know this information. The information is already on your head. You just have to learn some new terms, translate some ideas, okay? But the information is already in your head, okay? So it should be a little easier. The third competency is to improve public speaking skills. Some people think that speaking in public is easy, okay, but it is not as easy as some think, okay? You have to be persuasive, you have to support your arguments and ideas, okay? Managers have to communicate to lots of people, okay? So they need to know how to speak in public. Let's think about ancient Greece and ancient Rome. Nowadays, when we look upon the history of those old days, we see that everything was massacre and slaughter and death and conquering. And, you know, we think it's crazy. And maybe people back then thought it was crazy too. But they had leaders, they had priests, emperors who promoted these things, you know, oh, let's conquer this city there or that city over there, you know. Even if your ideas are crazy, if you're persuasive enough, you can get people to do anything, okay? The key is persuasion. Even just look upon the history of those moments, okay? Even if your ideas are the craziest thing ever, okay, if you're persuasive enough, no one will doubt you. The fourth competency is to sharpen business judgment. Throughout your career, you'll study many cases that will help you become a better manager, okay? Many people will come to you with their problems expecting you to solve them. You know, you're the manager, you're in charge of doing many things, okay? And many people will come to you with their problems, expecting for you to solve them, okay? But the more you study, the more you read, you can read books, online, whatever you do, okay? The more you study, the easier it'll be for you to overcome these problems and to help these people that need you, okay? You just have to know what you're talking about, you have to read, and you have to look for some inspiration about how to solve these problems, okay? But the more you study and the more you develop your career as a manager, the easier it'll be for you. The fifth competency is to challenge critical thinking. Sometimes as a manager, you are going to have to talk about subjects that are not easy, okay? We're only humans and we don't know everything. So every once in a while, a topic that you're not a fan of, that you're not sure of, it'll come to you. You'll have to talk about it. The important thing is that you don't panic, okay? That you read, that you do some research, okay? So you can maybe get a grasp on what people are talking about. But the first thing, just if you're in a meeting and a topic you don't know about comes up, okay, don't be afraid to ask questions, okay? Get yourself some information before talking, before making any decisions. You have to, okay, to have some sense of what you're talking about. But every once in a while, don't panic if a topic that you're not completely sure of comes up, okay? Because it will happen. You just ask some questions, get some information, and just know what you're talking about before you make a decision. The last competency is to expand quantitative skills and data sufficiency capabilities. Okay, this is pretty much numbers. If you are a manager, you mustn't be afraid of numbers. Okay, managers, as we already said, managers cover many tasks, and don't think otherwise. Okay, but managers, once in a while, numbers will come your way, okay? You have to learn how to cope with numbers. You don't need to be afraid of them, okay? You need to learn how to read graphs, how to explain them, how to convince someone else through numbers, okay? Numbers, graphs, they are very important if you want to present an idea to your bosses, okay? Numbers are pretty much, they give pretty weight to your idea, okay? They're very important. They will help you for your idea to become more realistic, okay? So as a manager, you don't need to be afraid of numbers because you will see them eventually. It's just when they come, don't panic. Just learn how to deal with them. Learn about graphs, learn about numbers, okay? It'll certainly help you become a better manager. Now that we've covered most of the information of today, we are going to talk about the case method. The case method is Aldi. Aldi is a small supermarket chain that carries 1,400 of the most commonly purchased items. And what's funny is that 90% of these items are sold under Aldi's private brand. Aldi is well known because it excels at creating efficiencies. They can lower costs more than any other supermarket chain you've ever seen. This is a very interesting case, and it's very good to work on it because not all companies can do what Aldi does. Okay, it's pretty challenging, and one of the characteristics of core competencies is that it's very difficult. It must be very difficult to imitate by competitors. And what Aldi does is not really easy to imitate. I mean, not everyone has the talent to lower costs as much as Aldi does, because this is really a talent. It's very challenging, and sometimes when we look at it, we don't even understand how Aldi does it. But they do, and that's why it's very well known. Okay, this is a very good option, and it's pretty much a lifesaver to lower income families, because they can buy many products for like half that they would buy at a Walmart or Kmart, etc. Another reason why Aldi is so well known, besides creating efficiencies, it's because even though they sell 1,400 of the most commonly purchased items under their private brand, this these products taste nearly identical to the originals. Okay, so this is why customers love Aldi so much, because even though the products are not original, they hold nearly the same taste, and they're good products, they're quality products. So this is a life-saving solution for lower income families, and it's honestly a great idea as a supermarket chain, but also it's very difficult to imitate by competitors. Okay, so Aldi's managers, the people who created this business, they really had like a life-changing idea. They revolutioned pretty much supermarket chains, and it's pretty amazing. It's incredible. So we said that Aldi excels at creating efficiencies. Creating efficiencies is pretty much the way to lower costs. Okay, so there are many ways in which a company can create efficiencies, but we are going to talk about the 5 main ways in which Aldi creates efficiencies and what makes them so well known. The first efficiency is private branding. Like we said, 90% of the products Aldi sells are under Aldi's very own private brand. Okay, maybe they change the ingredients of the original product for cheaper ingredients, or they also change the packaging sizes. Just small little details that make the product cheaper, but it still manages to contain the same quality. Okay, and that's very important, and that's one of the reasons that makes Aldi so popular. Next is second efficiency is purchasing power. Purchasing power is pretty much about the volume of the purchase. If, for example, Aldi buys to one of the people who supply them with the products, for ketchup, the people who supply them the tomatoes, for example. If Aldi makes a large purchase of tomatoes, they have purchasing power. They can negotiate with these people and tell them, oh no, I made a purchase of, I don't know, $1,500, I don't know, a lot, something very expensive, something very big. They can negotiate. They can say, well, maybe you can give me a 10% off discount, or maybe for the next purchase you can give me some tomatoes off, something like that. Okay, it's about depends on the volume of the purchase. And this is also a great way to create efficiencies. The third one is the streamlined approach. Streamlined approach is about eliminating unnecessary steps in the supply chain. For example, Aldi doesn't have stock. For example, let's go back to the ketchup. They get the tomatoes, they create the product, and they pack it up, and that's it. And then they get it to a truck. But instead of getting it to stock, they just they get the truck to an Aldi store, and when they get to the Aldi store, they just unload the product and they just set it inside the stores, in the boxes or in the few shelves that they have. They don't have stock, and that saves them a lot on stockaging. That saves them a lot of money, and it's also a very creative way to save up space. The fourth way to create an efficiency is limited headcount. Limited headcount means that Aldi has very few employees that can pretty much do anything. They don't need to have like a specific employee to do this or to do that. Just pretty much they have like 3 or 4 employees who can do everything, like being at the machines, or just mopping the floor, or stocking the few shelves that they have. Okay, they have very little employees that are able to do everything around the store, and that's great, because they don't need to have a specific person to do each thing, but instead all of the employees can do it all, and it's just a great way to save time, and it's really creative, and it's really a good idea. And the last efficiency is our in-store efficiencies. For example, Aldi has some sort of specific lighting that is, cheaper, or that it lasts longer, something like that. So they don't have to change the light bulbs so much. And for example, it's very good for the environment too. It's a very ecological idea. And also, they don't sell bags. Once people pay, they can get the products, get the products in their purses, or they can bring their own bags from home. That saves them a lot of money on buying bags. And also, they don't have shelves. They have like box-ready shelves, which is, once they unload the product from the truck, they just set it in its very box in the middle in the middle of the store, and just customers can just easily grab the product from the box and just take it with them, and they have many incredible ideas like that. And Aldi is a very fun case and very interesting case to work on. And honestly, it's very for supermarket chains who are trying to reduce costs. Aldi has many great ideas on how to do that. After all, Aldi is the king of creating efficiencies and reducing costs. Well, thank you so much for watching this edition. I hope this helped you understand a little bit better about businesses and managers, and what pretty much the characteristics every good manager should have. And I really hoped you enjoyed this and that it helped you get a little more perspective on the position and on manager's position and how to become a good manager. And well, there are many more cases like Aldi that are just as interesting as Aldi, but Aldi is pretty much one of the few cases that's just not only interesting but also easy to understand. And it's very funny, to see the way that they create efficiencies. And yeah, it's just pretty creative and very eye-catching, if you know what I mean. Well, thank you so much for watching, and check out some of our other videos. Thank you.